Welcome into NFL Daily by Chat Sports. I am Tom Downey. Here's what's coming up on today's Labor Day edition of the show. Well, the Kyle Pitts trade rumors, they're never really gone, but they're back again. We'll discuss it. Trent McDuffie contract updates and some 2026 NFL draft buzz. So the quarterbacks and how they fared in week one of college football. Before we dive into that, our bosses said we need 30 subs on today's video or else. So we'll see. I don't really want to figure out what or else means on that front. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Let's dive into the Kyle Pitts latest here. The trade rumors are never truly gone, but they're back again, being hinted at, this time via The Athletic. Here's what they wrote, saying, quote, teams have been under the impression Pitts could have been available in a trade in the past. And that could be the case if the Falcons stumble before the November 5th trade deadline. The obstacle there, though, would be the balance of Pitts' $10.878 million salary. That's a lot of money for a guy who hasn't been the guy that they've kind of needed him to be. Look, I'm not sure these are ever going to go away until he signs with a new team. And even then, they'll probably be doing it again, since we saw the tantalizing potential early in his career that hasn't really been capitalized on since then. I think a lot of this depends on how the Falcons fare in the first 2 months or so of the season. They've invested a lot in this team. Their future assets are tied up in this team. They traded a future first-round pick. Other players, like, they have to be committed and be dialed in to this roster. If they don't have success, it does kind of put them in a bad spot where they're not going to have as much success with no future pick on their or no future first round pick of their own. They've traded that away already. So how the Falcons fare, I do think, matters a lot in this conversation. Pitts hasn't been that good lately. 47 catches, 602 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's not what you're paying him for. Like, that's just not at all what they're paying him for. 667 yards in 2023 wasn't any good. 1,000 yards in 2021 was awesome. That guy hasn't been the same player since then. He hasn't been the same impactful piece before that. Like, that is the key thing. He has to be better than that. And the guy he currently isn't going to justify being paid $10 million. Now, it'd be the prorated figure. It'd be kind of more like 6 or something along those lines. But it's not what he's angling for. So will the Falcons actually trade Kyle Pitts? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. It's the pinned comment. Will the Falcons trade Kyle Pitts? Go vote in the comments of today's show. Y for yes, N for no. Let's go to the Trent McDuffie lack of an apparent extension coming. ESPN reported that the Chiefs and McDuffie aren't expected to agree to a new extension before the season comes, which means that we're going to get to the franchise tag stuff down the line, etc. So sounds like that's the path here for McDuffie, that there will be no contract extension, which is noteworthy to me as it relates for McDuffie. He's been really good. I think this is one of the better young corners in the NFL. He is a big factor in why the Chiefs are able to run their offense the way that they're able to. He's got the 5th-year option next year, so there is some time before we get to the franchise tag stuff, but I'm sure the Chiefs would have liked to have found a way to get that deal done. I had thought, and this is now erroneous on my part, but I had wondered, like, hey, does the DaRon Bland deal, which came across the wire yesterday, impact anything with McDuffie? Because both those guys have played some inside-outside stuff. There's some comps there. The actual DaRon Bland details are actually 4 years, $90 million. It's not even the fully $50 million guaranteed. It's a little bit less than that, technically speaking, but there's an injury guarantee as part of it, so it's really $490. But ESPN reports that to get that McDuffie deal done, the Chiefs would have actually had to have made him the highest paid corner in football, which I interpret that as reporting of that's what McDuffie's camp was asking for, and if they weren't going to get it, then they weren't going to do the deal in general. So that's noteworthy to me, and maybe makes a little bit more sense as to why the deal isn't done yet. And maybe why it gets done next year, because next year the higher cap, if it's the same figure, you actually feel okay about it. Sauce Gardner is the highest paid corner in the NFL at $30.1 million after he beat out Derek Stingley Big gap between them and J.C. Horn. And then, Deron Bland at 20 is down there with, or 22 and a half, is decent sized gap between Pat Surtain. The guaranteed money also would have been probably around $90 million. Stingley and Sauce, both extremely high up on that list. So I'm not terribly surprised McDuffie's asking for so much. But if it was make him the highest paid corner, I do understand the trepidation and pause coming from the Chiefs organization. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's simple to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get those picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Georgia, and Texas, by the way. Keep an eye out for their max discounts. For example, week 1 of the season, Dak Prescott, a half passing yard. Even if you don't like the Cowboys, that's not going to be an issue at all to get the half passing yard. It's the freebie. Put it in all of your lineups. I'm going Dak Prescott, the more than half passing yard. Xavier Worthy, 3.5 yards per carry. Ashton Genty, anytime touchdown as well. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the comment section and the description of today's show. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Let's dive into some draft talk here coming out of week 1 of college football. Some new odds for the number 1 overall pick. These will ebb and flow. I don't want to make a referendum on a player's entire season based on one game, but we can have the conversation about the good and the bad from it. New number 1 pick odds. Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, plus 350 per DraftKings. Lenore Sellers, plus 400. Arch Manning drops down to plus 700. Cade Klubnik down there at plus 800 as well. We'll spend some time on these 5 players and mention a couple other potential number 1 picks based on the odds. Who do you think will end up being that top pick in the 2026 NFL Draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. It's the way too early prediction, so you can certainly change your mind later, but let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's go to Garrett Nussmeier here, and I thought he played very well. Very efficient, very dialed in, crisp, clean, 73.7% completion rate. Got the win for LSU. They've had so many issues winning games early. He does a lot of the quarterbacky things well. Didn't do a ton on the ground. Only the 1 touchdown, but kind of TDs were down across. I feel like for outside of the garbage teams that some guys are playing, like it's kind of down in general in week 1 in college football. But for what NFL teams like and what they want to see, I thought Nuss put a lot of good stuff on film against a very good defense in Clemson. Drew Aller was playing Nevada, so maybe don't put that much stock into it one way or the other. It was good. High completion rate, plenty of passing yards. They had a bunch of rushing TDs. Ethan Grunkmeyer played like a decent amount as well for Penn State. So it was a tune-up game of sorts for Drew Aller and company for the Nittany Lions. Nothing that was certainly disqualifying. The big stuff for Aller, not FIU or Villanova. Oregon to end September. That's a big one. How does he fare against Ohio State? I want to see Aller deliver in the biggest moments and the biggest opportunities on third downs more consistently. That's what I want to see from Aller. Lenore Sellers had a very fun and highlight reel-worthy game. Sellers, 2 plays stand out to me. There was plenty of good stuff, like Harbor should have the extra TD catch as well. So it could have easily been 3 and 250-something yards plus for Sellers. He's very dynamic. We know he can run. That couple nice runs to ice the game. The one that really, really iced it was that he made 2 guys miss in the backfield that should have been a sack for sure and found a way to just shed the sack. It's not even sack avoidance. It's just he's so powerful. These dudes bounce off him somehow. It's wild, and a great deep ball to Nick Harbor. If Nick Harbor has unlocked the deep ball tracking, this offense could be electric this season. Let's discuss more on Arch Manning, or at least a lot on Arch Manning. I think we all watched the game, right? It wasn't very good. There was a lot of stuff that Arch has to be a lot better with. My big issue was the footwork. He constantly did not throw into plays and just relied on the sidearm throw. Like that check down to Ryan Wingo, the crosser, it's there on third down, chance to go tie the game late, sidearm throws it, and it's high and behind a little bit. Can't do that. You're a man, and you should know better than that. There was some good stuff. I saw some good downfield throws, but 1 interception should have been 2. The second one was very lucky to not be intercepted by Texas, or by Ohio State. That does matter. This is probably the hardest game Arch is going to face until the college football playoff, or at least potentially, like on the road, defending national champs, going to be number one probably after this first week of college football. It wasn't good enough, and certainly will dial back some of the concerns or hope of Arch Manning going pro this year. So with that in mind, does Arch Manning end up turning pro? 1 for yes, 0 for no. The plan, I think, all along had been to stay at Texas longer unless everything went his way. Well, through one game, it has not gone his way. So let me know in the comments. 1 for yes, 0 for no. Cade Klubnik, speaking of not greats, it just wasn't good enough. That Clemson team, I think, is still going to have a really strong season, but it just wasn't good enough from a consistent pocket passer perspective for Klubnik. Not all of his fault. I know Antonio Williams got banged up too. That stuff is a consideration, is a factor, but tough matchup. LSU's defense seems good now, which is a great sign for the LSU Tigers, but Klubnik's stock probably does drop just for the game, at least. Some other number one pick odds: Sam Leavitt plus 1,200. Fun game for Arizona State. Fernando Mendoza. I know there are some fans of him across college football. TJ Parker at Clemson. Caleb Downs might be the best player in all of college football, but he's a safety, and those guys typically don't go nearly as early. And then Keldrick Falk at Auburn. I also say shout out Ruben Bain Jr., the Miami Hurricanes edge. Had those Notre Dame offensive tackles in hell all night long.